So I've got Bob with me. Now Bob represents the totality of all things. In another video, I asked why Bob exists, and I proposed what I call the foundation theory. According to the foundation theory, Bob is composed of two kinds of reality. There's dependent things, and then at the bottom of Bob, there's this foundation that doesn't depend on anything outside of it, because there's nothing outside of it. This foundation has self-existence. It exists because it cannot not exist, whereas everything else within Bob depends for existence on something else. Now in this video, I want to think more about the nature of the foundation. I want to use the tool of reason to see if we can discover some other attributes of the foundation. Now Bob has a name, so I think we should give a name to the foundation. Let's call the foundation Sue. Sue exists and it cannot not exist. What else can we know about Sue using reason? Well, first of all, we can know that Sue has eternal existence. And here's a reason for thinking that. It's because anything that comes into being or ceases to be can fail to be. Imagine something begins to be. Well, then just prior to its beginning to be, it doesn't exist. It's absent from reality. But then that means that it's possible for it to be absent from reality just prior to its beginning. Same if it goes out of existence, if it ceases to be, then again, it's possible for it to be absent from reality. Sue, by its nature, can't be absent from reality, and so therefore Sue, by its nature, must be eternal. It can't come into being or go out of being. So that's kind of cool. Reason tells us something about Sue. Can reason reveal anything else about Sue, anything else about its nature? Well, first of all, we can define power as the ability to explain the existence of something. Now, Sue explains the existence of the rest of the elements of Bob, all the dependent things, and so therefore Sue has power and eternal existence. Anything else we can learn about Sue using reason? To help us to think about this, I'm going to propose for your consideration a principle that I call the principle of arbitrary differences. This principle is based on the following question. How is it that all the things in our ordinary experience, the things that are dependent, have an outside explanation, while something else, Sue, does not have an outside explanation? There must be a difference between these kinds of things, dependent things and the independent foundation, that's not arbitrary. It's not an arbitrary difference. It's a deep categorical difference that can explain how there can be these two kinds of reality. Well, the principle is that anything that is merely arbitrary in difference is going to be the same with respect to whether it has self-existence. So for example, this hand doesn't have self-existence. This hand is not Sue. This hand, by contrast, is Sue. No, that just doesn't make sense. You already know that this hand is not the self-existent Sue. You know that. But how do you know that? Maybe this is the one self-existent reality. This hand produced everything else. How do you know that's not true? Now, I agree we should be intellectually humble, especially when we're thinking about such deep questions about the foundation of existence. And we should prefer to just say we don't know if we don't actually know. But I'm guessing you do think that you know, and I think you're right about that this hand, my hand, is not Sue. This is not a self-existent creator of the rest of the dependent things in Bob. But how do you know that? The principle of arbitrary differences accounts for how you would know that. It's because this hand is not different from this hand or any other dependent thing in a way that's relevant to self-existence, right? We can just see that through reason. Our minds tell us that mere differences in shape and size and location don't account for this difference between existing in a dependent way and existing in an independent way at the foundation. All right, well then what can we unpack from this? What follows? What does reason tell us? Well, it seems to me then, tell me if I'm wrong about this, if I made a mistake. I want to really get to the truth of this. I'm not just trying to create this video to give you my view of the world. I'm really trying to understand the foundations of reality. I really want to see what reason tells us. Well, what it looks like to me is that the foundation, Sue, has to be relevantly different from the kinds of things that are dependent. And in particular then, Sue can't have a shape. It can't have a size. And the simplest theory of Sue is that it would be perfect without any limits at all. It would be a perfect being. Why is that? Because if it had any limits, then its limit would make it relevantly similar to the kinds of things that have an explanation for their limits. So think again about this bit of reality that has a shape, all right? It has a shape, but then we can wonder, why does it have that shape, right, rather than a slightly different shape? Why is it there, and why does it look like this? This very question invites the outside explanation. The outside explanation accounts for its boundaries, accounts for its limits. And if there can be something that has no limits at all, then this kind of a thing wouldn't have the same kind of need for an explanation beyond itself. And that's exactly what Sue would be. So here's the argument. Differences with respect to limits are irrelevant, arbitrary differences. They don't make the difference with respect to self-existence. Therefore, the difference between Sue and the rest of Bob must be a difference not with respect to limits. Everything within the rest of Bob has limits, whereas Sue has no limits. And then this can provide a framework for understanding how Sue could have self-existence while Bob does not. Well, let's think about why this even matters. First, by thinking about how reason can tell us about the nature of the foundation, we're not being moved along by wishful thinking. We're not trying to believe in a perfect being because we want to only, but rather we're trying to let reason be our guide. It's our light. We have reason in hand and we're letting it lead us to truth. So reason seems to tell us that this thing cannot have a beginning, cannot have an end to its existence, and it can't actually have any boundaries at all. Well, the only kind of thing that would have no boundaries would be a perfect being. So if I'm right about that, then Sue is a perfect being at the foundation of the rest of reality. If I'm wrong about that, I'd love to see where I've gone wrong. Let me know.